Unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard of the new Leica M6. It's a modern version of one of the most iconic film cameras of all time, and there's already a 2-year waiting list to get one, so people are definitely into it. But this is YouTube, and anytime you say anything about Leica, the Leica haters show up to flame the comments with post after post about how terrible Leica cameras are and why nobody in their right mind should ever buy a Leica ever. What's their problem anyways? In this video I want to talk about who these Leica haters are, why they hate Leica so much, and most importantly, are they right? Let's get into it. I think there's two kinds of Leica haters. The first group has never owned a Leica, and neither should you. Anytime they see a Leica video on YouTube, they hop in the comments to let everyone know the truth about these terrible cameras. You'll hear them say the same thing every time. Leica's just an overpriced luxury brand. Other cameras can achieve similar or better results for less money. The red dot's just a status symbol, and people only buy Leica to show the world they can afford them. Or how many times have you heard the claim that only rich dentists use Leicas, or doctors, people who would rather have a showy bauble than a real camera. And then there's the 100% true stories about how Leica haters bought several Leicas and had to return them all because the quality control and service was so terrible. Or my personal favorite, the straw man argument that says people only buy Leicas because they think it will make them a better photographer. What? Nobody I've ever met thinks that about any camera. That's just made up nonsense designed to paint the Leica owner as irrational, someone who would only make a purchase like this because they're not thinking straight. I mean, the list could go on and on, but they're all saying the same thing. You're paying a huge premium for the Leica name and you're just wasting your money because the camera does the same thing as any other camera anyways. You'd have to be out of your mind to buy this overpriced and substandard piece of garbage. Gasp. And that's just one group of Leica haters. The other group's even more delightful. They're the double agents, the people who claim to already own a Leica, usually some legacy model that hasn't been made in 50 plus years. It's almost always an M3, and they picked it up for a couple $100 including the lens. And this precious antique is the pinnacle of design and performance, so they'd never waste their money buying a new Leica. It's a slightly different argument than the first group uses, but the tactic is the same. Both groups adopt a negative attitude towards the brand, then use anecdotal evidence to show why their choice of not buying a Leica was the right choice. And anybody who does buy one is too stupid to see the truth. Sour grapes much? But where does the hate come from? Leica isn't entirely guiltless in the perception that they're just a luxury brand selling expensive baubles. Who can forget the 45-minute long video of a Leica technician polishing the outer shell of a Leica T? They actually promoted the fact that they spent this much time making sure the outside of the camera was perfectly smooth, as if that somehow justified the price. Then you have the Deluxe 7, which sells for $1,395. And it's literally just a repackaged Panasonic LX100 Mark II that sells for $800. And the only difference is that the outer shell has been restyled with the red dot in place. And don't even get me started on the crazy limited special edition cameras that Leica does. These are just tarted up versions of their regular cameras that typically sell for 4 to 5 times the regular price. They sell out instantly, so clearly there's a demand for it, but it doesn't do anything to help dispel the myth that Leica cameras are just showy baubles. One of the most common complaints you'll hear about Leica cameras is that they're overpriced. But I'd argue that while they're expensive, they're not overpriced. Calling it overpriced is an attempt to discredit the brand by suggesting that the price is greater than the value. But based on what? Warren Buffett famously said, price is what you pay for something, value is what you get. So value is established in the individual relationship that each person has with the product that they're purchasing, and it's often defined by how that product performs its basic function. Let me give you an example. Expensive cars. There are Porsches and Lambos and Rolls Royces, oh my, and they all get you from point A to point B. And if moving between point A and B is the only reason you would buy a car, then a Hyundai will do the same thing at a fraction of the cost. But the value of a high-end car isn't determined by its basic function. It's how it gets you from point A to point B that matters. Whether you're looking for speed or luxury or even just fancy style, each of these cars brings something different to the table and scratches a different itch beyond the basic utility of the thing itself. And I think you have to view Leica through the same lens. Yes, it's a high-end product with price to match, but in the case of the Leica M rangefinder, the way the camera allows you to shoot is different than any modern mirrorless camera system. Shooting with a rangefinder affects the way you see the world, and it's something that works really well for street photography. We've all heard the idea that rangefinders show you what's happening outside the frame so you can see potential subjects before they enter the shot, and that's definitely an advantage when you're shooting street. But for me, it's more about the psychology of being able to look through the camera at your subject instead of in the camera at a tiny TV. This changes your perspective and makes you feel more in touch with the thing you're shooting. And that's important for a street photographer like me that wants to do more than take boring pictures of people walking. You might not value this style of shooting, but it's definitely one of the things that makes Leica cameras stand out for me. That and they have freaking amazing glass, but that's a whole other can of worms. But why all the hate? None of this explains why Leica haters are so mad about every Leica camera. I mean, who really cares what camera somebody else buys? Here's what I think. Leica creates high-end products and markets them towards a very specific group of people. They don't apologize for making high-end products, and they don't really make anything less expensive. It's almost as if the Leica haters are reacting to not being part of Leica's demographic, and their reaction is to badmouth the club that they can't get in. It feels like you're standing at the front of the line at a nightclub and the bouncer lets the cute girls in ahead of you. You can't pick a fight with the bouncer because he's enormous and you have pipe cleaner arms, but you're going to tell all your friends about this injustice and they're going to stop going to that club and the club will eventually close and the bouncer will be able to work, and it serves him right for not letting you in when you were clearly the next person in line. Of course, this is all just conjecture, but it might explain why so many Leica haters have the same bee in their bonnet. Just saying. Forget about all the foibles and the missteps for a minute. Forget about the rebranded point-and-shoot cameras or the polished blocks of aluminum, and think about the M series of rangefinder cameras that really define Leica as a brand. These cameras are workhorses with incredible build quality that's pretty much unmatched in the industry. Anyone who's ever held a Leica in their hand knows this is a tangible thing. These are really well-made instruments that are designed to last a long time. But even the most expensive camera still needs a good photographer to create compelling images, and I normally fail miserably at that task. I'm actually living proof that having a Leica does not make you a better photographer. It doesn't make you a worse photographer either, but here's the thing. Going back to cars for a second, buying an expensive car doesn't make you a better driver, but it makes driving better. The way I feel about my Leica MP makes the act of shooting film even more enjoyable, and I literally look forward to every chance I can get to get out and shoot with this camera. That alone is worth the price of admission. Flame on, Leica haters. Hey, I want to hear from you guys. Are you a Leica hater or a Leica liker? Or are you one of those rare photographers that doesn't care what kind of camera somebody else uses? Post your ideas in the comments down below and let's keep that conversation going. We just broke 10,000 subscribers on the channel and my mind is blown. I am completely humbled by the fact that so many of you tune in to watch me go on about cameras and stuff. It really makes all the work I put into creating these videos worthwhile. If you're not already a subscriber, then what are you waiting for? Do it now. Hit that thumbs up button while you're at it. There's a ton of film and street photography videos coming up and I'd hate for you to miss any of them. But for now, I'm Karl Edwards and I'll see you in the next one. That's all.